Coming to ya live from WRUE in Tennessee. It's the Scribbling Woman.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rue. I am the Scribbling Woman, and so are you, and that's why we're having this conversation. Here, we talk about the writerly life that is unique to you, no matter your age, your season, or where you are in your creative journey. You are now an official Scribbly, so let's talk. I want to thank you for sharing the delight in season 4 as we recaptured the joy of the writerly life and discovered ways to cultivate it going forward. It's essential to establish that foundation because, ironically, the more challenging our writing is, the more vital the joy is. So in this 5th season of The Scribbling Woman, we're going to explore what happens when we need to go deep with our writing and with our writerly lives. Now, before you protest, I liked it better when we were talking about playing, or I don't want to go deep. It's scary down there. Let me reassure you. Depth isn't about dark and frightening. It's about rich, authentic meaning. And the truth is, if we don't maintain joy when we go there, it can twist itself into a place we don't need to go. It's my respect for you as writerly women that leads me to this season. You are capable of depth. In fact, it's the very purpose of the writerly life. So first of all, what does it mean to go deep? There are as many answers to that as there are scribbling women, so I'm just going to offer 4. Going deep means to refuse to offer pat resolutions, but instead explore the possibilities, the complications, the moral dilemmas. In To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee exposes racism for the travesty it is, but she doesn't provide a complete solution. She gives hope, yes, that one person can make one difference, that the seed for change can be planted in children, even if it costs us. Going deep means to refuse to present an issue as black and white, right and wrong, but instead to expose the reasons why people make the choices that they do, why they do things counter to what we expect, counter to their true nature or to the law. In Murder on the Orient Express, Agatha Christie places our beloved Hercule Poirot between a rock and a hard place. He has a train full of people who all participated in the killing of someone whose own act of murder had devastating effects on each of their lives. In deciding whether to report them to the authorities, Poirot must determine if it's the law or justice that he must uphold. Going deep means to refuse to allow fear that someone will be shocked or offended by what we write to stop us. Instead, we write the truth with as much compassion as possible. In her nonfiction book, My Personal Holocaust, author Carolyn Sherrow tells of the ritual abuse she suffered as a very young child and the resulting dissociative disorder from which she's still healing. Initially, she struggled with whether to write it. Would this be hurtful to members of her family who knew nothing about it? Would people believe her? Would they think that she was mentally ill? A clear call to write this book as an aid to those who have suffered or those who are in relationship with those who have gave her the courage. Basically, going deep means to refuse to write what we think we should write and instead go deep within ourselves to know what we must write. So that you'll know that I myself have been there, I'll use some examples from my own work. I wrote Antonia's Choice, a novel, because our extended family experienced the devastating results of child sexual abuse. I knew I had to create a story depicting a similar experience to offer a way to deal with that tragedy. When I proposed this to my publisher, he said, "Is it going to be palatable for a Christian audience?" My answer was, "I certainly hope not." I wrote the Reluctant Prophet trilogy because I saw some churches becoming more like gated communities, when outside those gates, Wretched things were happening that church-going people were either ignoring or judging. Now, in the Christian publishing world at that time, authors weren't criticizing weaknesses in the way Christianity was being practiced. But I saw a beautiful example of how it should be, right here in Nashville, in the Thistle Farms organization that came out of St. Augustine's Episcopal Church under the leadership of the Reverend Becca Stevens. I knew I had to create a story that played out something very like that on a smaller scale. I expected backlash. All I ever received were positive responses. Even in my books for tween girls, I continually felt nudged to take on the deep challenges they faced, even if it meant putting certain adults in an unfavorable light. The Mean Girl Makeover trilogy is one example. 3 books about bullying from the point of view of the bystander, the bullied, and the bully. I was ready for some grown-ups to say things to me like, why didn't you just say, just ignore it? Or this too shall pass, and a number of other things that actually Jesus never said about bullying. Some people did say that, and it was okay. The readers themselves are still writing to me to say thank you. So how do we know when it's time to go deeper? It's been my experience that the nudge to write with depth becomes stronger as we get more life on us, no matter what our age. So what does that nudge feel like? Again, this is unique to every Scribblie. I'll give you a few to get you started pondering what this is like for you. First of all, you may become restless with what you're currently writing. Suddenly, you can't bring yourself to write another happy ending romance, even though there's definitely a place for those kinds of stories. You're bored with the cozy mystery formula, even though people do love them, and rightfully so. That's why I'm watching Father Brown for the 5th time. Maybe the fantasy tropes suddenly seem shallow, even though there's something safe about expecting them. Or perhaps your characters suddenly seem flat. Your protagonist is too good. She's starting to make you feel bad about yourself. Your protagonist is too bad. You don't love to hate him anymore. Your supporting characters are acting like caricatures or stock characters. I mean, what is this, commedia dell'arte? Thirdly, you may feel like you're weaving in the same through line over and over. Didn't you already say this in the last nonfiction piece or book that you wrote? Didn't your last 3 protagonists learn this exact same lesson? Is the same old wisdom just coming out of different characters' mouths? Now, that's not to say that we don't have a large unifying canvas that we paint on throughout our writerly lives. Mine is authenticity. All my books have been about characters discovering and living into their true selves, but each time I try to add a different brush stroke to that canvas, show a different aspect, present another challenge on that difficult path. But when we recognize we're repeating the same aspect, yeah, we get restless. Or perhaps something going on around you makes you so angry or anxious or frustrated you can't think of much else. Things that are going on in our country right now. Injustices that our kids face. The crumbling of things we've always counted on. Or perhaps you finish reading a book and you say to yourself, I wish somebody would write real about this topic. No, you don't just pray and everything turns out wonderfully well. Come on, nobody's marriage is perfect. Seriously, recovery is not just one and done. For some, knowing when to write deep is an innately spiritual experience, something akin to the still small voice, a relentless murmur, a physical urgency. In those cases, we don't even have to know why we're compelled to write beneath the surface. We just know we have to. So how can we prepare ourselves for going deep? This isn't the easiest kind of writing. We have to get our writerly selves in the best possible shape for the journey. I sound like a playlist on repeat, but yet again, this will take its own unique shape for each of us. Just a few suggestions to show you what I mean by preparing yourself. Deposit a large sum of joy in the bank to be withdrawn as needed for the process. If you're going to write about a depressed protagonist, be sure to have plenty of play planned for yourself. If you're basing a piece on painful memories, embrace what is good and delightful in your present life. If what you want to create will require plenty of solitude, balance that with fun interactions with the people you love. Next, lean into the spirit that guides you. Since the urge to go deep comes from there, the guidance to deal with whatever comes of it comes from there too. If you feel that God is calling you to write about the dangers of Christian nationalism, doesn't it make sense to pray? If the compulsion to write a historical novel about women's hard-won rights came to you in meditation, isn't it a no-brainer that you continue to meditate on the idea? If while journaling, you had a deep knowing about weaving a fantasy where acceptance of differences in people is the aim of a magical quest, doesn't it follow that you need to keep journaling about that knowing? Keep tapping into it? No matter what your actual religious leanings or lack thereof, art of any kind has its origin in something more than just our conscious selves. Why try to create without the very thing that brought us here in the first place? Enlist the support of at least one other person. I don't mean make it sound like you're going to make it sound like you're going to be anxiety-ridden the entire time. But if you're going to venture into deep meaning, you're going to want somebody holding the flashlight for you. I'm currently writing a novel about a 35-year-old single mother who's non-binary. I believe very deeply that every person has the human right to see themselves in whatever genderly way is authentic to them. Being cis-female, I'm in deep territory with no map. But fellow author Sarah Greek is walking me through this. Sarah never runs out of batteries for that flashlight. Not everything we write has to delve into the hard stuff. It's also important that even when we do create a piece that confronts a tough challenge, we don't have to stay in those depths in every aspect of the story. We love To Kill a Mockingbird because Scout delights us. We can embrace the ethical dilemma of Murder on the Orient Express because Poirot fascinates us. As much murder and mayhem as went on in the Reluctant Prophet trilogy, I still had fun with Desmond and his antics. I say that because I don't want you to skip the next 4 episodes of our podcast because you think it's going to be a downer. I promise not to lead you into any dead-end tunnels. Our intention in the writerly life is to make rich, satisfying, meaningful journey to what is ours to impart to our readerly world. So in these upcoming episodes, we'll talk about discovering what's deep within you that longs to come out and finding healthy ways to uncover it and bring it gently into the light. We'll discuss how to write even when we're afraid. We'll set up our own cautions for when deep becomes too deep and create ways to take care of our writerly selves when that happens. And finally, we'll talk about balancing depth and joy in our whole writerly lives. Meanwhile, if you want to find out more about all the writerly things from my point of view, at least, do visit www.nancyrue.com. And on the books page on that website, you'll see an announcement about a book created just for you by myself and 6 scribbling sidekicks, an interactive companion for the writerly life in any season. That's coming your way in January with pre-orders starting in December 1st. And now, until next time, Scribblies, I want you to scribble on and scribble deep.